Lecturers at the country's universities on Monday went about their duties as normal in defiance of a strike call by the University Teachers Association of Ghana. UTAG had called a strike to protest a court directive about development at the University of Education, Winneba. The national body says it's an attack on academic freedom. JoyNews checks at the various campuses revealed many of the lecturers were in the lecture halls teaching. Maxwell Agbagba was at the University of Ghana, where the students were happy to have been spared another disruption to their academic calendar.
I've been to about 5 different classrooms and lecturers are in there. And classes are happening. Students, some of the classes are actually full. A lot of students are also trickling in because we know that there would also be a 9:30 class. So the 7:30 class, which ends at 9:30, is currently ongoing here at the John Scotty building. On our way, we went through the University of Ghana Business School. There also classes are happening. Also at the new N block, that's the NNB1, NNB2, NNB3 classes are happening this month. That's the 7:30 to 9:30 class. And even as we stand here, we see some of the students walking here for their 9:30 class.
But then coming here today knowing that, yes, the lecturers have come here to teach us, I'm quite excited myself. And SEM just began. We can't be having strikes here and there which will affect our studies. So I must say I'm excited.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me find out. So there are some who are saying, well, an incident that's playing out on the University Winneba campus. We don't see how it affects us here on the University of Ghana campus. I've heard some of these concerns raised by your own colleagues. I don't know what you also think of that.
Well, as my colleagues have said earlier, that it shouldn't necessarily affect other institutions. But last I heard from one radio station, that's Radio Universe, and they called the president, and was asked why why this should affect other institutions. He was of the view that it's better they stop this thing now before it affects other institutions, because if they're only going to concentrate on Winneba, then next time it might be another university.
I think as the adage goes, that if you see your brother's beard burning, you should try to get water attached to yours.
Some people say you should enter the well.
Some people even say that you should your beard. You understand? Yeah. So I am of the view that with something of this nature happening on the University of Education Winneba campus, moving forward as a nation, we can backing on our. Believe that we shouldn't sit down, aloof, and then allow us to happen. I'm of the view that government should step in.
The situation was no different at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. There, the public relations officer says he was waiting. They were waiting for confirmation from the national UTAG, but once they did not get the confirmation, they refused or they declined to go ahead with the strike.
Well, for some, I spoke to a few colleagues who thought, well, it's a governance issue that was affecting one institution, and he felt it should be handled by that institution and not extended to the other tertiary institutions. One also was of the view that it appears the autonomy of the institution was being affected if such decisions come. And I quite remember one also raised the issue of fees, the fees the students were supposed to pay. Parliament had to look at it and approve. So where do we stand in this? I don't think it to be very fair on the part of the students, but we also cannot overlook the concerns of UTAG also. I think there is a need for all and solve the issue.
Well, at the University of Cape Coast, the former National UTAG president and a lecturer is asking the national president of UTAG to apologize to all university lecturers for disrespecting them. According to him, the universities across the country are not complying with the strike called by the national UTAG because the leadership of the union failed to follow due process, thereby subjecting the lecturers to public ridicule. He, together with other lecturers at the University of Cape Coast, want the UTAG president to handle the union with what they describe as the seriousness it deserves. At a news conference in Cape Coast, Reverend Dr. Emmanuel Abole called on the universities to continue to disregard the strike called by the leadership.
If our campuses are calm and we are going about our lectures, it's all due to the fact that the whole process is flawed. And the national president has taken a high-handed approach in pushing whatever agenda he thinks he has through. This accounts for why we are not complying. And I think to a large extent he owes us and the whole nation an apology. And let all well-meaning Ghanaians realize that university lecturers are very level-headed. We are sufficiently trained to analyze, and we carefully examine issues, interrogate them sufficiently before we take an action. Per our training and per our professional ethics, we cannot go to this extent without following due process. Above all, the issue is before court. And in our view, this will amount to contempt. We are citizens of the land, subject to the constitutions and the laws of this country. We cannot do otherwise. Whatever it is, we need to be sufficiently informed, and we need to go through the right process before this action can come into full force. So let all who are hearing in the air disregard the declaration, because UTAG, among our membership, have disregarded it, and that's why we are lecturing. So that the insult will reduce. And then people who are in high places also will be assured that this is not the way we go about our issues. Truly, it is disrespect, and it is also disregard. It amounts to that precisely. And to this, he only succeeded in stampeding those who were around, probably to get a majority in that particular quorum. But he doesn't have the mandate yet. If he has cleared one hurdle, it ought to come to us to examine it before.
The National UTAG President, Dr. Harry Agbanu, has declined comment on the matter. Elsewhere, staff of the New Times Corporation on Monday picketed at the head office to demand better conditions of service. Among their complaints is their claim that they have not seen a salary increase in the last 7 years. They also want their managing director removed. Nancy Emefa-Dradozi was there and filed the following report.
The mood here at the Times Corporation, where staff and workers are protesting over poor conditions of service. Now, speaking to the chairman of this particular union, tells me that they're actually just protesting within a short time because of management's failure to honor their promise over the years.
All promises from management has been empty for years now. The promise of salary increment has been ranging from 11%, 3% and COLA. Our own money, which is the Provident Fund, has been sat on. Provident Fund, management have denied workers of their Provident Fund. And so they said we cannot access our Provident Fund, money being contributed by workers, they are 5%. And that of the corporation, they said we cannot access this. Reason being that they have allowed workers to take loans from Ghana Commercial Bank, and so they are using workers' PF as collateral for our PF.
One of the protesting employees, Ransford Owulabi, accused management of taking decisions detrimental to the company's interest.
Graphic is sabotaging us. Sometimes our people used to come out around 7 a.m. How are we going to do it to send the paper to Kumasi, to Northern region, Central region? If the paper is out 7 o'clock, whilst Graphic is down there about 4 a.m.
The demonstration was held with the backing of the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union, and its General Secretary, Solomon Kote, promised to relay the workers' concerns to the sector minister, but he also called on the managing director to step aside.
We will not sit down and allow one person to come and see the demise of this great institution. What we see as the mismanagement is for us to have a big company like Times and we have only 2 products. Our basic pay is among the lowest we can find in this country. And besides this, People resign and their end of service benefits are not being paid to them. We are here this morning to encourage all of us that it is not because of these people times will die off. We shall resume back to work and we shall ensure that she will not step a foot back into this company.
GJA President Afel Money also noted he will meet with appropriate stakeholders to urgently deal with the matter.
Our appeal is to the stakeholders to rally together to address what is happening with urgent promptitude. The Provident Fund, which has not been invested, I believe it wouldn't take much to invest the Provident Fund. This is a low-hanging fruit which can easily be fixed.
Watching JoyNews Prime, we're taking a break, but still ahead. Police declares 2 deputy chiefs of staff of allegations of wrongdoing leveled by musician A-Class. Stay tuned, we'll be back with that and more. Now, the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service has described as baseless and unsubstantiated allegations of thievery and corruption leveled against 2 deputy chiefs of staff by musician Kwame Asare Obeng, popularly known as A-Class. The police CID has thus cleared the 2, Abuja Napo and Francis Asenso Boachi, of any wrongdoing. Kwame A-Class on August 27 had, in a Facebook post, made allegations of corruption and thievery against the 2 government officials, claims he justified when he appeared on Joy FM's Super Morning Show.
The president has asked for an investigation. That is what I'm going to do. How I put it, I have apologized to that.
To the president?
Apologized about how I put it. I've apologized to the president for the method, to the people themselves. I think that certain language.
Oh, so you've apologized to the people themselves as well?
Yes.
Okay.
For the language that I used.
Okay.
Yes.
But not the substance of your accusation.
Of course.
So they are actually corrupt.
That is how I feel. That's how I feel. That's why I'm going to give evidence.
So you have evidence that these people are corrupt.
That is how I feel. It's about me. It's not about the general person.
Yeah, so it's you I'm asking.
They will come and say it's not true. I've not done this.
Okay. But it's you I'm asking. You have evidence that these people are.
Why are we here?
So that's a yes.
No. Yeah. Why are we here? We are here to talk about accusations that I've made.
Good. So you have evidence that these people are corrupt. And then
I've been invited to give evidence. So I'll go there and tell them how I feel.
Okay. Now, of course, as Ghanaians, should we be concerned about how public officials who are working in our name, how they conduct themselves? These 2 deputy chiefs of staff. Should we as Ghanaians be concerned?
Everybody has to be concerned, but we are fortunate to have a president like Nana Addo, who has called for an investigation. Even when it's only been alleged, he said investigate. Everybody can sleep peacefully now. You know that we are not getting to the 72 million and 100 and whatever. 51.
Well, A-Class was subsequently invited by the police CID to assist with investigations, but a statement released by the police say that musician could not substantiate his claims. The statement issued and signed by the Director General of the police CID, Bright Odro, said the allegations of thievery was dropped by A-Class, but that of corruption was maintained. When probed further on the issue of corruption, A-Class cited an intervention by the 2 chiefs of staff on a matter involving the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, according to him, following a petition by Unibank Ghana Limited to the effect that the management of Kolebu had abrogated an existing MOU with them without any reason, and that the Kolebu Teaching Hospital had not treated them fairly. The 2 Flagstaff House officials, among others, intervened to seek clarity from the hospital's management regarding the said petition. But the police CID said after weeks of investigations, it did not find the intervention by the 2 as illegal or inconsistent with the laws of the country, stating the allegation of corruption was found to be baseless, unsubstantiated, and without credibility. Authorities of the Tema Metropolitan Assembly are warning of imminent disaster at the Kpone landfill site due to what they call poor management of the facility. The site was constructed with funding from the World Bank and handed over to the TMA to manage. The Assembly says even though its waste department has the capacity to manage the facility, it was ordered to hand it over to Waste Landfills Limited, a subsidiary of the Jospon Group. As part of the Robbing the Assembly's investigative series, Manasseh Zuriawuni explains how the TMA is stuck with this waste management company, though it is failing to live up to its end of the bargain.
It is a business at the Kumasi landfill site located at Petit in the Kumasi metropolis. Refuse trucks of different sizes and shapes, as well as tricycles, are seen climbing to become a mountain after years of dumping, compacting and covering. Pastor Michael Morris-Nyako is the manager of the Kumasi landfill site.
This is the tipping phase of the landfill. This is where we work daily. You see most of the machines at work. The dozer is pushing all that the tricycles have brought in. The roll-off and the skip trucks are all coming in with the compactors. And so this is where the operations goes on. So we call it the working phase of the landfill. So you can also see other tipper trucks with latrats. We call it covering material. So we are creating access road and at the same time covering. And so the ideal is it should be daily covering so that there will not be fly, rodents, insect vermin to have access to actual waste that we dump in. And it's also prevent odor. You could see you've been time now, but the place doesn't smell as such because the covering that you see going on.
The Kumasi landfill site is managed by J. Stanley Owusu, one of the pioneer waste management companies in Ghana. A greater part of the field has been covered with laterite. Walking or driving along this covered stretch, it is difficult to tell it is a refuse dump site. The situation at the Kumasi landfill site sharply contradicts what happens at the Pong landfill site near Tema. This is managed by Waste Landfills Limited, a sister company of Zoom Lion. The refuse dumped here is not compacted or covered. Apart from two machines pushing the refuse to make way for dumping, nothing else is done here. The TMA supervisor at the site, Ernest Elason Njawan, tells Joy News, standard practices are not followed in the management of the landfill here.
I wouldn't qualify as at now as near landfill site. The reason is simply that per the design and how we go by it, when we don't go first, daily pushing compaction, followed by daily capping. But all these things have failed on the part of the contractor because we don't do the daily capping, and they have their reasons as to why they don't do. But what I know is that it's not done, and it should have been done every day. No matter the volume of the waste that come here, you should have tried to do it. The leachate is now dripping all around, contaminating the environment. And also, there are no screens to take care of the flying material. So all these things have combined to disqualify the site being an engineer landfill site.
At the time of our visit, access to the dump site was choked, and refuse trucks and tricycles spent hours queuing to empty their contents. Dark liquid from the dump site, which officials say is toxic, could be seen flowing into surrounding water bodies and the nearby communities. The Tema Metropolitan Director of Waste Management, Solomon Noy, tells Joy News, management of the landfill site after it was ordered to hand over to the Jospon company leaves much to be desired.
Landfill is getting full due to accumulation of leachate and then inability to do effective compaction. You know, every time you dump the waste at the landfill site, there must be bulldozers on site to compact the waste, and then you do what? Use material to cover it so that there will not be pollution of the environment. But this is not done. That is why I said the landfill is not being managed as expected.
And we have so many types. We have what I've described, the central engineer landfill, where we have serious equipment there. The driver goes there, there's a working phase, he's directed to tip, the bulldozer or transcavator pushes and spreads. Then the compactor compacts, run on it several to make it compact, to create more space for further dumping.
On daily basis?
On daily basis. Good. Before, if you are doing proper listen, like I said, then you cover with laterite. Then we have what we call control tipping. You could construct a landfill, but if you don't follow the processes I've described, and you have the equipment there, it only comes and you push. That's what we call control tipping. You are controlling what they are tipping there, just pushing to make space for further dumping. But you are not compacting, you are not covering, you are not safeguarding anything.
Assemblies across the country have told Joy News they are overburdened with debt after being made to sign dump site management contract with Waste Landfills Limited, even though some of them do not need such services.
Our current setup as Waste Management Department for the Tema Metropolitan Assembly is well positioned and is in the position with the right caliber of personnel to manage the landfill site. Because the landfill site was not just put up by the World Bank and left. It came along with other logistics by way of equipment and others as we speak. Because it has been franchised to this company, all the logistics are left to rot.
The poor verdict on the company's performance by the TMA raises questions why this company was solely handpicked for a nationwide contract. For Joy News, Manasseh Azore Arena reporting.
In another development, the court has adjourned the case in which the Just One group of companies is seeking to stop multimedia from obtaining information regarding the Robbing Assembly's investigative piece, from getting that information. Now, the company had gone to court to say that it did not want it sought to stop companies, that's in government agencies, from releasing information to the multimedia group regarding the Robbing the Assembly's investigative piece. Now, on Friday, apparently the company had gone to court again to say that it was changing its mind about pursuing that case. But today, it went back to court again to say that it actually wanted to continue with the case. And so that matter has been adjourned to October 18. We're taking a break here on JoyNews Prime. Still ahead, there's been some key changes to heads of departments at the Bank of Ghana, while some units have been merged. We have that coming up, stay tuned.
Hello, good evening to you, and thanks for joining me on Business. The Bank of Ghana has made some key changes to various heads of department and has also merged some other units of the bank. The changes, Joy Business understands, will take effect from October 2. The following Business Desk report has more.
According to sources close to the Bank of Ghana, these changes are aimed at sharpening the focus of the bank's internal processes and enhance the functionality and synergies among the various departments. Joy Business understands that the research and statistics departments have been combined into one department for it to be called Research Department, with three key divisions, that is monetary policy analysis, statistics and guest-all projects. We also understand the Communications Department has been moved into the Secretaries Department to be headed by Secretary of the Bank, with the following divisions, that is Board of Operations, Protocol, CSR and Communications. Sources say the bank has also created a technical and investigative unit in the Governor's Department. Joy Business is learning that Catherine Ashley would be the new Advisor Currency Management, Grace Kofi Advisor Research. Raymond Amanfo will still be the head of banking supervision. Upon his retirement, Osei JC would take over the position. Dr. Joseph France is also expected to take over head of financial stability upon the retirement of Francis Blankson.
And away from that, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, has called on government to conduct a forensic audit of all state projects funded by revenues from the oil and gas production. According to the committee, the audit is critical to throw more light on how some oil and gas earmark funds were used over the past 6 years. The audit is expected to reveal how contracts were awarded to some companies under the Petroleum Revenue Management Act within the last administration.
The call is coming after a project inspection conducted by the Public Interest and Accountability Committee revealed that some projects earmarked for completion from funds of the revenue derived from oil and gas sector were poorly delivered. Dr. Steve Mantiel is a member of the PIAC.
PIAC has on several occasions also raised the issue about poorly executed oil-funded projects, sometimes non-existent projects, supposed to be funded with oil revenue. The time has come for government to do a forensic audit of all oil-funded projects in this country and to bring to book anybody who has abused our common heritage, which is the revenue derived from the extraction of this important resource. And I think when we do that, it will serve as a deterrent for anybody who may be tempted to abuse the oil revenue because he thinks there will not be any consequences for his actions. To have its underpinning on value for money considerations, because some of the expenditures have been very frivolous. In 2012, some of the expenditures have been clearly targeted at winning votes.
Another key issue that came up was the inability of the Ministry of Finance to engage local authorities before awarding oil-funded contracts in the various district assemblies. The bitumen surfacing of the new Tafonobi Samlesi Enuabing Feeder Road project was constructed with concrete, contrary to the initial plan of bitumen. Frederick Addison is the Eastern Regional Manager of Feeder Roads.
If the bitumen surface of asphalt, you'll be doing maintenance. Maybe every year you do patching, every year you do patching. So maybe after 20 years, if you add the maintenance cost plus the initial cost of the bitumen surface, it will be more than
undertaking a concrete
pavement. And maybe this one you only do grassing. You cut grass cutting. So if you look at the life cycle cost over 15 years, 20 years, this becomes cheaper. It's just that we don't have money, so everybody shy away from. If you look at the amount of money, yes.
Considering the mandate of PIAC, some members of the public back calls for amendments to the Petroleum Revenue Management Act to increase funding for the committee.
And so within the petroleum sector, government has justified a review of the old thermal-liquefied natural gas LNG deal, describing it as very expensive. The previous contract would have engaged 3 firms, Quantum Power and West Africa Gas, and also Kahil Supply LNG, and construct an import terminal. But government insists the old arrangement would have cost the country more than $1 billion. The GNPC last Friday finally signed a new agreement with Russian-based Gazprom, the largest gas producer in the world. Deputy Minister of Energy William Oreku explains to Joy Business how this new deal would improve power supply in the country.
The Gazprom thing is just a supply of LNG, and I think a lot of work, great pains were taken in the selection of the suppliers. So that one is no, there's no problem as far as I can see with the supply or the involvement of Gazprom and Sahara to some extent.
What would that mean for power generation? I won't talk about that.
Reliability, because of the steady supply of the fuel.
Meanwhile, energy analyst and executive director of the Kumasi Institute of Technology and Environment, KITE, Ishmael Ejukumhene, has been speaking to government's decision to engage Gazprom in a sales deal. In a Skype interview earlier on the market on Business Live, Ishmael Ejukumhene supported the current contract with the world's largest supplier of gas.
I think the government and the Minister of Energy have explained extensively the circumstances under which they feel that the previous agreement or the deal with Quantum was not in the best interest of the country and why they believe that this one is the best. So I am reliably informed that there wouldn't be any issue of judgment death, and that there's a condition precedent that Quantum has refused to meet. So in that sense, I don't have any serious problems with that. I would have had problems if indeed it would have resulted in the judgment death. But as it stands now, we need
the regasification facility. And the earlier we construct it, the better, because then it will enhance our energy security. It means a lot. It's like you rightly said, it's a big player, and once they are on board, it sends signal to others that this is a serious market, that others could come and do business. But I thought there was this agreement with Equatorial Guinea to also supply gas. So we need to be clear that we don't sign too many gas agreements that we probably, I'm sure they have their eye on the ball, but Gazprom is big. It's a big player in the industry, so it could spawn some interest coming from other equally big players in the gas field.
Okay.
The gas government has already settled on the broad theme that would shape its economic policies for next year. The following report spells out the exact areas the 2018 budget would focus on and how it impacts the operations of businesses.
According to government, the budget would look at consolidating some of the gains it has made when it comes to expenditure, which has been under control over the past months, inflation and economic growth. Sources say government would also want to use the 2018 budget to reduce the amount of money in relation to revenue mobilized. Government is hopeful some additional measures being implemented will help boost revenue mobilization, even though it has indicated that there would be further cuts in taxes announced in the 2018 budget. However, many would be looking forward to see how government would outline its fiscal policy, looking at the fact that revenue, as at the middle of this year, is still struggling to meet targets. There is also talk about the establishment of a fund mainly aimed at supporting small businesses that will also be announced in the 2018 budget. On the broader theme, government economic policy for next year would be guided by programs aimed at boosting agricultural and industrialization. One can talk about government, one district, one factory. This should mean that more funding would be allocated to this sector, so if you're a businessman operating in this area, there could be an opportunity for you in terms of soft credit. This is because sources close to government have maintained that they want these programs to be private sector led. Government is also expected to use the 2018 budget to give some detailed breakdown on how it intends to fully fund its flagship educational program, Free SHS. This would be the country's last budget that the IMF may have a greater say in terms of meeting some of the critical targets under the program, which is now expected to end in the first quarter of 2019.
And that's all in business for tonight. Many thanks for your company. For more business news, log on to myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji Riafi. Good evening.
Agric Minister Dr. Akoto Usufriye says government deserves commendation instead of condemnation over how it managed the invasion of fall armyworms across the country. It says Ghana has managed the invasion better than other countries in the sub-region. The debate over whether the pests have been defeated, as claimed by the minister, resurfaced at Monday's sitting of the Public Accounts Committee. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo was at the sitting and joins me live in the studio. Now, Joseph, the MP for Booster South, Dr. Clementa Park, apparently challenged the claim. Now, let's start with what the minister had to say first of all.
So Dr. Park was drawing attention to a comment that the minister had passed before in Parliament that the worms had actually been defeated, and he said that he had been back in his constituency some weeks ago and he's visited farms and he's seen that a lot of the armyworms are active and they are still destroying fields. So he was seeking clarification from the minister on whether he stands by his comment that they've really been defeated, and the minister said yes, he is firmly of the opinion that they've been defeated. He said that there was the invasion of 114,000 hectares on farm fields, but then when it comes to even maize production alone, Ghana farms more than 1 million hectares of farm fields, and so his conclusion as to it being defeated has to do with the fact that it won't result in any situation of Ghana experiencing famine thanks to the invasion by the fall armyworms. And Dr. Park responded by quoting dictionary meanings of what the word defeated means, and he said it includes annihilation and a few other terms, and so he's really not convinced that what the minister was saying is accurate. It resulted in somehow a heated argument on the at the sitting of Park earlier in the day.
So 14,000 over 1 million is what we are looking at. If the Honourable Member of Parliament thinks that is defeat, then that is his definition of it. But scientifically, you cannot say that 14 over 1 million, over 14,000 over 1 million is not a defeat. It is a defeat. It is a defeat in the sense that if we have 124,000 affected, and eliminate all of it to the extent that we are expecting a bumper crop, and his constituency is only a small fragment of Ghana. I don't know how many acres or hectares of
Mr. Chairman.
Of maize. Please, Mr. Chairman, can I finish what I'm
saying? The people of Bristol South must also exist and survive and thrive. So simply because the worm they have...
Mr. Chairman, I don't know why you allow the member to disturb me without you stopping him.
But you are going overboard.
No, I'm not going...
I have asked you a specific question.
It's for the chairman to decide whether I'm going overboard.
You cannot belittle my constituency.
Honorable Minister.
In fact, this phenomenon is so new. It's only 2 years on the continent of Africa. Only 2 years. And it's causing such havoc. We have been very successful in controlling it compared to other countries, say Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and the others. And we should be commended for it rather than being condemned. Thank you.
Right, so certainly there was quite a bit of banter there.
Anytime, Dr. Koto appears before any committee of parliament, you see some of that.
Certainly some banter. Now, the other issue that came up at the PAC hearing has to do with the planting for food and jobs and the fact that there are instances where the credit is extended to some of these farmers and yet they don't pay back.
Yes.
That has become an issue.
Over the years, government has been doing that, subsidizing input, including seeds and all of that for, up to 25%, sometimes 30%. Another planting for food and jobs, which is a new policy, government subsidizing them up to 50%. And so usually when government takes off the 50% cost, the rest of the 50% cost, the farmers are expected to pay about 25% of that upfront. And then after they've harvested, then they pay back the rest usually in kind, as far as the produce are concerned. And the Auditor General... As in they can
pay with their produce that they've harvested, yes, or they can pay cash.
Or they can pay cash, but usually they pay back with the produce. Now, the Auditor General is reporting that back in 2015, government gave out some of those inputs in loans and a lot of it wasn't recovered. So there were questions about now the government is increasing the subsidy under the Planting for Food and Jobs program. What's the game plan to ensure that government recovers the investment? And the minister indicated that currently they are working with the Agri-Development Bank. Even for the major season alone, they were expecting that the money that was put in, they would recover up to 61 million cedis. So far, they've recovered more than 40 million. So he indicates he indicates that they made a lot of progress in that regard. But they were drawing his attention that, well, that may have been earlier in the year. You can't be too sure what happened subsequently. And then the Deputy Minister for Agriculture, Dr. Sagri Bambagni, drew attention that they are pursuing a very aggressive policy this year when it comes to recovering the amounts. And he's even warning that this is a project that is running for the next 5 years, the Planting for Food and Jobs policy. Any farmer who doesn't pay back the inputs that are given to him will be blacklisted going into the next few years as far as the implementation of the project is concerned. And that's some of the warning that they are giving out to farmers to ensure that even as they take the inputs, they do their best to ensure those sums are recovered.
All right, thank you very much, Joseph Opoku Gapo, our parliamentary correspondent. Now, the Anti-Galamsey Task Force should be getting embedded journalists soon so they would witness firsthand the operations of the troops. The initiative comes on the heels of accusations members of the task force have been brutalizing residents of communities where they have been deployed. At a training of journalists who will be among the first to be deployed, Information Minister Mustafa Hamid said that reporters' inclusion should provide a more objective account of the task force's operations.
Journalists, media people into the Operation Vanguard so that you can at all times update the public on what it is Operation Vanguard is about. There is no doubt that there are people who are against Operation Vanguard and are doing everything that they can to give Operation Vanguard a bad name in order to hang it. So people are putting out all sorts of information that the soldiers have killed people here, the soldiers have brutalized people, and etc. All in a bid to incite public, if you want, resentment against Operation Vanguard, so that government will be compelled to pull out the soldiers, and then people can continue with their activities of degrading our environment and jeopardizing our collective future. In order that they don't succeed, we think that it's important to have objective-minded, neutral people like you, not politicians, who be on the field with our soldiers and police, and be able to report back to us, I mean the Ghanaian people, you know, about what it is exactly that these soldiers are doing. Is it true that they have turned themselves into beasts and monsters and terrorizing and killing and maiming citizens, or they are just doing their work?
The Ministry, Mr. Hamid says, is also trained journalists working in communities plagued with the menace.
How you can fit in, you know, when you move into the field, what are their do's and their don'ts, and so on. That all of that will help you. And of course, because it's a war situation, the Galamsey people, as you know, are armed, especially the non-Ghanaians and so on. The Ghanaians are also armed, but especially the non-Ghanaians, they have arms and they have used these arms. So now, as journalists going into these theaters, we also need to give you precautions as to how you can also protect your lives and so on. All of that will be the business of the military people who are here to tell you, so that we can do our duty of informing the Ghanaian people how Operation Vanguard is going, and at the same time protect your lives, because it is not good for us to endanger your lives unnecessarily. So that's the reason we brought you here for between today and tomorrow. Hopefully after tomorrow we can then find a day in which we will deploy you to do your work.
Now, private lotto operators known as banker to banker want the removal of the Director General of the National Lottery Authority for his failure to regularize the operations. The operators, who say they number about 2,000, believe that Kofi Osae-Meal is failing to appreciate their contribution to the economy and has rather chosen to establish special courts to prosecute them for operating illegally. Insura FM's Nana Asenso covered the association's news conference in Kumasi.
If you take Osae-Meal himself admit in Accra, I think to Good Business, a newspaper, that even 85% of their own accredited agents are doing banker to banker. Do you know why? Because the banker to banker people are paying a commission of 30 to 35%. They don't pay 5% withholding tax. But you, the government, you are paying 20% commission. You also deduct 2.5% from it, and then you give them 17.5% as a commission. And when somebody also wins, you deduct 5% withholding tax. And one funny thing is, even as you speak, if you can't NLA Lotto kiosks across the nation, it will not even reach 5,000. It will not even reach 5,000. You have inefficiency. So the best thing I could have done was, how best can we make sure that the National Lottery has become visible across all the 216 districts? Look at the regional office, Patasi. Consider the number of monies they are receiving, and look at the state of their office. According to Section 32 of the National Lotto Act, it's tied to the consolidated fund. So if they receive profit, they pay into the consolidated fund. If there's losses, they get money from the consolidated fund to offset it. Why are you using our taxpayer money to trade game of chance?
And those are the headlines we have at JoyNews Prime right now. But in other news, some parents of the Presbyterian Junior High School in Tamale in the northern region have petitioned the West African Examinations Council WAEC against the cancellation of the mathematics paper of the awards at the 2017 Basic Education Certificate Examination. The parents who petitioned WAEC through the Ghana Education Service threatened to go to court if the matter is not resolved amicably. The 21 aggrieved students who had their paper cancelled were amongst 28 who sat for the examination at the center. Northern Regional correspondent Martin Abogre has come through with this report.
According to a guardian, Avala Philemon, the results were released but the mass was withheld. It was later cancelled. He said they had followed up to the Education Directorate to see how the matter can be addressed amicably. He however threatened that they will seek legal redress if the matter is not resolved.
They are alleging or claiming that they copied in the objective test. And people of God, we should ask everybody here 1 + 1. Everybody will say 2. So if we should write an exam right now about 1 + 1, and we all write 2, I don't think it would be right to say that because our answers are same, we copy. See, so it actually baffles our mind, and we want to believe that we've not been treated fairly, and so we want our voices to be heard so that the appropriate processes will take action. And our last bullet is to resort to legal actions, where we'll do all we can to get a competent lawyer to plead our case at the court of law, because that is the last bullet.
Elijah Bruce, one of the students, said he was depressed and his parents were disappointed in him. He said even though he never cheated in the exams, he was suffering for something he did not do.
It's really depressing because you see your mates preparing for senior high school and you are just in the house sitting, you feel useless, and sometimes you feel really disappointed. Your parents feel disappointed in you. It's like sometimes it's your fault, but it's not actually our fault, because they see our colleagues going and we are sitting. It's like we didn't even write the exam, we didn't struggle, so it's really disappointing and frustrating.
Another student, Opata Kolibila Emilia, who scored Agri 7 without the maths included, questioned how a class of 28, some will be taught in an objective paper, leaving others.
We are very sad because most of our colleagues are in school, some of our mates, our classmates, the same people that we start in the same class, they are all in school and we are still here. We haven't even gotten our results, talk less of placement. So we are very sad and disappointed. I'm saying we are disappointed because we are saying we copied, and in our class we are from the same school, we're from the same school, we all sat in the same class. Then we all wrote, and then they are saying we copied, but then 9 people had schools, then the rest of us, they didn't give us schools. So if they are saying we copied, then that means those who are in schools, they've copied. So we don't understand why they are doing that.
JoyNews agenda today focuses on the provision of infrastructure in senior high schools in the central region and how school authorities are managing the situation. Richard Kojonyako has been traveling to some of the schools and reports inadequate infrastructure has forced many of the schools to hold studies under canopies and in uncompleted structures.
The free senior high school bells have rung, and they are still tolling across the country. They are echoing everywhere.
Free SHS is here! Free SHS above!
The fanfare is still deep within the hearts and minds of many people.
Oh, I've heard that if you are enjoying the free SHS, you no pay school fees. So yes, so that will help more in my brothers who are in the primary school. Like as in the one that they will use to pay my school fees, they will rather help in their school fees.
In all of this, many challenges have been encountered in the process, and same have been overcome, but a greater proportion still persists in spite of the smiles on the faces of many parents whose children are the immediate beneficiaries of the policy. The greatest challenge that still towers across the many schools scattered across the country is that of infrastructure. The challenge of infrastructure remains as pronounced as the free SHS itself.
The decision by stakeholders of Adisadel College to revise downwards the intake of SHS1 students effective the 2016-2017 academic year due to inadequate accommodation facilities, coupled with the dissolution of one temporary house, New House 1, reduced the intake from 920 students in the 2015-2016 academic year to 423 for the 2016-2017 academic year, a percentage reduction of 54. It must be mentioned that the document by stakeholders on admissions served as the guide for the 2016-2017 SHS1 admissions and shall remain so for the years ahead till accommodation facilities in our college improve.
The headmaster of Adesada College, William Kusiabwa, was very candid about the challenge during the school's anniversary recently. The challenge has forced many schools to cut down their admission intake. In many of the schools that I have traveled to in the central region, the evidence is clear. Many projects have stalled for many years. Those that have been completed have been shabbily done. And even though government has spent millions of Ghana cedis on such projects, the schools cannot make use of them. Such structures continue to stand in most of the schools, waiting to collapse.
In the year 2012, a new classroom block was commissioned for the use of Form 4 students. Unfortunately, we had to evacuate the building due to some structural problems. Last year, a contractor employed by the government came round with some workers and began some semblance of work on the building. But they left after a very short time. Until date, the classroom block still stands empty. It is very dangerous studying in a building which is adjacent to one that can collapse any second. It is our heartfelt plea that work on this building be completed as soon as possible.
Head prefect of Wesley Girls Senior High School, as she then was, Akosia Mantibia Buampon, narrated the sordid state of affairs during the school's anniversary recently. Apart from these stalled projects, many of the senior high schools continue to study under weird conditions.
How does it feel being under the canopy?
Feels very hot under it. When you're learning, sometimes you don't even feel comfortable sitting at the place. You feel like coming out of the canopy to a more comfortable place. Because when the child is teaching, you see most people holding their fans, fanning themselves. The whole canopy is very, very hot.
Also, authorities at the Dagwasu Basic Primary School in the Walangbele in the Sicily East District of the Upper West Region are in dire need of help. Apart from 3-unit classroom block that is used by the junior high school, the rest of the school, from the kindergarten to primary 6, hold classes under trees. Upper West JoyNews correspondent Rafiq Salam, who visited the school, reports that apart from classes being held under trees, the pupils have neither tables or chairs and depend on stones and blocks as furniture. They are appealing to the government to come to their aid.
This is the Dagwasu Basic Primary School. The school, located at Walangbele in the Sicily East District of the Upper West Region, was established in 2006. 11 years after its establishment, the school boasts of a total population of 450 pupils, but that could not be said of its infrastructure. They still depend on the 3-unit classroom block that was used to start the school. Looking at the present situation, it clearly showed that the pupils have outgrown the school. The 3-unit classroom block is now woefully inadequate, forcing authorities at the school to see the 3-unit classroom block to the junior high school, while their junior colleagues at the kindergarten up to the primary 6 sit under trees. They have neither table nor chairs. They sit on the bare floor. The lucky ones among them improvise either a block or stone and use as seats. Baton Dima Yusuf is the headmaster of the Dagwasu Basic Primary School.
Teaching and learning is stressing. It's very difficult. Most of the time during this period, this rainy season, our hearts are always up when we see the rain threaten. We are always worried. I do run up and down to see how I can push them into the 3 classrooms. Most of the time they do run away because of a fall of either a chameleon or a snake from the trees. So they disperse most of the times.
The school until last May was without a single textbook, forcing them to use part of the capitation grant to buy a handful of them to aid them in their teaching.
The upper primary, there are no textbooks at all, no textbooks. It was just last academic year, I decided to buy some books from the capitation, the textbooks 5 copies across all the subjects for every class. Then the JHS, because of the lack of funds, I bought 2 textbooks. So for primary 4 up to JHS 3, there is no single textbook that is being provided by an individual or by the government.
Primary 2 teacher Kojoka Dakui Munkailu told a real story about a snake that once fell from one of the trees during classes hours. He said holding classes under the trees brings lots of inconveniences and distractions.
Some time ago, we were under a neem tree, and all of a sudden, a snake fell down. And in fact, it was a mess. Because I myself, I have to run for my life, as well as telling the children to also run away. So we have to bring blocks from the uncompleted building as a certain chairs for the children. And we arrange the chairs according to how the shade of the tree moves. While in the morning, we have to arrange them according to the shade. In the afternoon, we pick them and rearrange. So it distracts teaching and learning.
While the pupils and their teachers struggle under the unconducive studying environment, the Ghana Education Trust Fund, GET Fund, also has 2 6-unit classroom blocks built up to the lintel and roof level and left abandoned by the contractor. The 2 projects were awarded in 2013 and 2014 respectively to ease the congestion at the school. Assemblyman of the Wolembele electoral area, Tanko Daniel Dauda, said the contractors complained of government failure to release funds for the project. Government, however, released the funds for the completion of the project some few months ago, only for the contractors to receive the money and abandon the site.
I called the contractor and he confirmed that he has received funding. But up to now, we are following him to come to site. He's not coming. So we are appealing to the authorities to put some kind of force on the contractor to come. And some of these contractors will actually be blacklisted because they give contract to you, they give you the funding, and you go and use it for other purposes other than the purpose for which the funding has been given you.
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafik Salam, Wolembele.
Rectangle. Rectangle. Yes, maybe right.